Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining me for this really, really important announcement. Cal HFA has provided during this webinar that everything that I'm about to talk about is projected. It is not official. It is not the final version, but it is the proposed version of what's going to happen. So there was a meeting with the board of directors and they released this information. And so I want to share with you everything that I know and everything that I expect to be happening. So the first thing you need to know is that they are projecting releasing the money around March of next year. Now, again, it's proposed, but meaning it could take longer. I don't see it happening any sooner. So during the board of directors meeting, they said they expect to have this ready by March of 2024, but it could be later than that. So that's a critical thing to understand is they pretty much said there's no chance the money's coming out this year. You're really going to be looking at money coming out next year, and you're looking at it coming out probably in March, and it potentially could be later. So that's the first thing. The second thing that I want you to be aware of is they are absolutely going to be doing a lottery system. So they're talking about a loan delivery or a, how do I want to say this? They're a registration system. And basically they're calling it a pre-registration system where they are going to be registering everyone for the program ahead of time. So if you want to get in on this program, they're basically going to require you to get pre-approved by a lender, such as me, and then they're going to require that you put your reservation into their portal, and they're going to aggregate them based on geography. So I'll show you in a minute what the geography looks like, but I've been telling you before, I thought they were going to do a lottery system. They're saying they are. I was telling, and again, this is proposed, so it's not a guarantee this is what they're doing, but I'm pretty sure they're doing it, and they've officially said it. So they're going to do a lottery system. They talked about geographic restrictions. They're likely to do that. So they want to match the money to where the market is, the population, okay? And they actually want to serve underserved areas. So I'll show you in a couple of minutes some slides that I got from Cal HFA's board meeting, where they talk about what is the underserved areas that they are looking to serve. And they want to limit the number of reservations in each market so that it matches the number of the amount of the percentage of the population. And so you'll see in a minute where the money went, and you'll see where they want the money to go. There's also going to be some changes to guidelines. Okay, so there's a lot of proposals, there's a lot of projections on what this is going to be, but I feel pretty good that this is the framework of what they're going to build out. So let's share with you a couple of the things that I've got. Oh, by the way, one more thing, and I don't have this on my slide, but they are going to make it a first generation requirement. Now, again, this is proposed, so it can change, but they're going to make this a first generation requirement. And so what does it mean for first generation? Well, they defined their current working version of what a first generation home buyer is, and there's 3 requirements. They have never owned a home in the United States. So the original version of Dream for All said that you cannot have owned a home as your primary residence in the last 3 years. The proposal right now, the projection of what they're expecting is that the buyer can never have owned a home in the United States ever. Okay. The second thing is the buyer's parents or legal guardian have not owned a home in the United States in the last 10 years. Yes, you heard me. 10 years is what they're saying. Now, they're going to base this on a attestation. That means that you are going to sign a letter that says, I have never owned a home in the United States, and my parents have never have not owned a home in the United States in the last 10 years under penalty of perjury. Now, there was a lot of conversation during that board meeting about what happens if somebody lies? What's the recourse? They're trying to figure that out, but they're taking this very, very seriously. And so this is going to be restricted to people who are first generation homeowners. Again, these are proposed rules, and they're proposing this being launched in March. They're going to open up the registration portal around that time. Now, they're going to need some time to process all the registrations and allocate who got the lottery ticket. Okay. Once you get your lottery ticket, then they're going to give you a period of time to find a home. So I've been saying for the last few months, I think that they made a big mistake. They didn't know better, but they made a major mistake by requiring you to only get the funds once you got a property, and they fixed that. So the registration system is going to fix that problem. Now, the third option, as far as first generation, is if you grew up in a foster home, then you don't have to attest to the fact that your parents haven't owned a home in the last 10 years, but you still have to have never owned a home in the United States. So that is a significant change over what they required in the first version. Okay, here's some other things I want to talk about. So let's pull up this slide here, right? Yeah, there we go. All right, so here's what they're looking at as far as money is concerned. Actually, I think I'm one slide past where I want to be. Nope. Okay, so they had $200 million of money that was allocated, but they actually have money that was, how do I want to say it? They have money that was, sorry, I lost my slides. But anyway, that was left over from the first version. And so they actually have $255 million of money that they have that is going to be released. So that's about 2,000 people. By the way, I'll just roll with this because clearly my slide deck just went dead. But they're basically saying, hey, they went from 200 million to 220 million from the state. So we actually got more money from the state than we expected. And we had about $35 million of extra money that didn't get spent the first time around. So they have $255 million available. That's about 2,000 families. Hi, Kathleen. By the way, if you guys have questions, please feel free to post into whatever platform that you are watching on, and I'll answer those questions live as we're talking. If you're watching recorded, post the question in there, and I will cover those questions after the fact, and I'll go in and chat or comment to give you an answer. The first version, there was 2,500 people who reserved. 87% of those people funded their loan. What does that mean? That's a really high percentage of people who reserved the money that actually completed the transaction. Now, obviously, it was high because people didn't want to cancel the transaction, because if they canceled it, they didn't get to access the money again. So I think the new version is going to help this. So what they're doing is three things that their major focuses that the state legislature put out there. First of all, they're going to do a different registration system, like I already talked about, that is going to base geographically and make sure that you have time. If you win the lottery, you get picked, that you have time to find a home. They're going to do a lot more upfront marketing and outreach on this program. Their goal is really to help drive first-time home buyers, obviously first generation, and lower income. So they've narrowed the eligibility criteria to target first generation and to target lower income borrowers. And so what they talked about is having this program focused on lowering the income limits. And the original limits had us up to 150% of the area median income. They're talking about lowering that to 120% of the area median income. So fewer people are going to qualify for this program. They're also talking about capping the amount of money that you can get, up, capping it at $150,000. So you get 20% or $150,000, whichever is less. So if you bought $1 million home, you're only getting 15% help with down payment. You're not getting 20. If you buy a $500,000 home, then you get your full $100,000. So we have a question. So Diana says, what if one parent was not in your life or raised you, but you met them and they are a homeowner? That's a great question. And that is the kind of thing that we're going to have to work through. It's up to Cal HFA and how they're going to look at that. And again, these are all proposed rules. So I don't have any of the answers per se, but I think it's something critical the state has to look at is, hey, is this based on, like they said, if somebody was raised in a foster care environment, then you weren't really raised by that person. Well, then what if you were raised by your grandparents? And, does that count? Like if you there are, again, horrible situations people have had in their lives, but maybe you have your parents didn't raise you for some reason and you're raised by your grandparents. Who do you count? Who do you say is the parent that you have to be saying they never owned a home in the last 10 years. So lots of questions here, lots of unknowns about how this is going to roll out. So I'm giving you as much information as I can with the major caveat. This is all proposed. This is all projected. And I think it's going to look pretty close to what they're talking about here. They're not writing these rules and then planning on throwing it all away, but they are looking at how do we massage these rules to make them work. So CalHFA does have a feedback process where you can email CalHFA. I don't know that I have that handy, but I will find it and I will put it out there because CalHFA basically looks for feedback in their board meetings. And so you can email into CalHFA and say, hey, I want this to be brought up, that I'm concerned. So Diana, your question is a great example of the kind of feedback that we can give to CalHFA. So let's see what else they were talking about here. All right, so they're talking about reducing the income limit, like I said, from 150% to 120%. What that means, for example, is that in Santa Clara County, San Francisco, that area, the original limit was $300,000. Well, that would drop to $277,000 as an income limit. But in Los Angeles, so that's only a $23,000 drop. But in Los Angeles, the cap on the first version was $194,000. They're proposing dropping it to $155,000. So I helped somebody buy a home at $1 million in Los Angeles. They made $180,000, just under what the cap was, and they barely qualified for that $1 million home. So what's funny is when I talk about geography, Los Angeles is one of the counties that they feel is underserved. The counties that got the most money, the regions, the capital region, that's Sacramento County, that's Placer County, El Dorado County. Capital region got a huge percentage of the money. The Central Valley got a huge percentage of the money. But the high cost areas, the Bay Area, Los Angeles County and Orange County and San Diego, they got a very small percentage of the money relative to their population. And so the push that I heard as I watched this session, as I watched this presentation, the push is clear. They want to allocate money into those markets. Now, here's how they're doing it. What they're saying is they're basing it on where you live when you register. And so if you live in Sacramento County, and I think the numbers were like Sacramento County had, and I might even have this right here. Yep. So the capital region has 6% of the geographic 6% of the population, and yet the capital region got 12% of the actual transactions. So they're very disappointed in how much money went to the capital region. And so what they're going to do, so I'm looking at, 6% of California, 16%, 16% of the money went to the capital region. So we're talking about almost 3 times its proportion of population relative to what the how many people got Dream for All money. The Central Valley has 10% of the population, and yet they got 21% of the money. Yet you look at Los Angeles, they have 25% of the population of California, and they only got 9% of the money. The Bay Area did pretty good. They have 21% of the population, and they got 19% of the money. So they're talking about how do we make this more equitable? And the truth is, how do we drive more money into Los Angeles, Orange County, especially Los Angeles County? Well, the problem is the price of homes. And so there was a conversation from one of the board members that said, maybe in certain counties, we let the income limit go higher, because you can't buy a home in Los Angeles County if you make less than $160,000 a year. So how in the world can we expect somebody to use this program? But guess what? Based on what I'm reading, they're basically saying, hey, LA County has 25% of the population, therefore 25% of the money will go to residents of LA County. They're projecting 2,000 people will be served through this next release. Well, that means 500 of them would come from LA County. Now, here's what's interesting. They said they're going to base that on where they live when they apply and get a reservation, but they can buy anywhere in the state. So if somebody lives in LA County, they're going to have a better chance of winning the lottery. They're going to have a better chance of getting their hands on some of the money. And by the way, I'm not saying this is right. I'm not saying this is fair. I'm not saying it's wrong or it's unfair. I'm just telling you what is proposed right now. And what is proposed right now says, hey, if you're in the capital region only has 6% of the population. Therefore, you're only going to get 6% of the loans. So if you've got 2,000 loans, what are we talking about? 120 people, 120 families in Sacramento, El Dorado, and Placer counties are going to win the lottery. In Central Coast, you've got 10%, Central Valley, 10% of the population's in the Central Valley, yet 21% of the first round of money went to Central Valley homeowners. So why is that happening? Because houses are cheaper in the Central Valley. And so people can afford to buy a home. And so you had migration, you had people moving from the Bay Area that maybe they lived in the Bay Area. They found out about this program and said, I'd love to use it. I had a couple people like that said, I'd love to use it, but I can't really afford anything in the Bay Area. So I'm going to move out to the Central Valley. And so did it help somebody in the Bay Area become a homeowner? Yes. But did it count in the statistics of Bay Area people? No, it didn't. And so that's critical to understand that no system is going to be perfect, but they're trying to make it equitable. They're trying to make it balanced. We'll see how it ends up. So that's one of the big rule changes. Let's see what else. A cap on the shared appreciation. I talked about that. Ooh, this is another big change that they're proposing. They are proposing capping the combined loan to value. I'll explain in a moment what this means. Capping the combined loan to value at a minimum of 95%. Now, what the heck does that mean? That means that the first version said the minimum had to be at least 70%. So you could get 20%. I'm going to give you simple math and say you buy a $1 million home. If you took the Dream for All money, you can get $200,000 from the state. So you're borrowing 80% on your primary loan, and you're getting the other 20% from the state. Your combined loan to value is 100%. But you have the ability to put 30% from your own money. So you could put $300,000 of your own money down, plus $200,000 from the state. Now you're only borrowing $500,000, and your combined loan amount is the 500 plus the 200, or 70% of the purchase price. I got to tell you, I've mentioned it before when I was talking about what I think they should change. That person who had $300,000 to put down, they didn't need help. And I'm not saying that it didn't help them. I'm saying that there's other ways they could have bought a less expensive home. Now I know there's markets you can say, John, in the Bay Area, you can't buy anything less than that. The challenge is it is a program designed to help people who need help becoming homeowners. And too many people didn't need the help. They simply looked at it as free money. They simply looked at it as an opportunity to take cash that they didn't have to spend out of their pocket. And so, or spend it along with their own cash. And so this is a major change where they're saying, hey, you basically can only put 5% of your own money with the 20% from the state, so that you are putting no more than 25% down. Once we add the state's 20% into the loan to value, that means we get 95% loan to value. So that is a major change. So guys, there's a lot more to this. I want to just double check and see if there's anything I'm missing here in the upfront guidelines. They are definitely focused on low income households. The original release, I'm looking at my handwritten notes here. The original release, 22% of the homeowners were under 80%, home buyers using this program were under 80% of the area median income. So they're kind of saying, hey, we wanted to have at least 10% of the buyers be considered low income. They got 22. And they said, that's great. The problem is one of the board members made a really good point and said, yeah, but that's partially because there was inventory for them to buy. There was low priced inventory that kind of think of the canned food store. I don't know what the canned food outlet. They get the dented and damaged cans and they sit on their shelves and somebody buys them at a discount. But if you can only buy dented cans and everybody gets some free money, but all they can use is to buy dented cans, then the canned food store is going to sell out of dented cans. And then how do they replenish them? Because there aren't that many dented cans out there. And so what happened the first time around is people were buying at the low end of the price point. They were buying at the lower end of the market, and they ate up. There was some inventory that nobody wanted, some less expensive homes, some less desirable homes. Well, those homes got eaten up. This is what one of the board members said, and I kind of agree with their thinking. And so now the question is, of the second round, are we really going to be able to get 22% of the buyers using this program to be under 80% of the area median income? It's a great target, but it's really, really clear they are trying to keep this focused very narrowly. They're trying to decrease the income limits. They're trying to give priority to certain counties, and they're absolutely making it a lottery system. Again, these are all proposals. None of these things are set in stone, but it is pretty clear. They said we are looking at a March start timeline. Now, does that mean that you start writing offers in March? Or does that mean that's when you start submitting into the portal to register? That's the unknown. But they did make it clear there's going to be a start date that says on this date, we will open up the portal. They don't know what the date is. Then they're going to leave the portal open for a period of time where people can submit their pre-approval. So there's going to be some process where they're going to be pre-approving people, or not, they're not going to pre-approve. Lenders such as myself are going to pre-approve you. Michelle, I see your question, and I will bring it up in just a second. So there's going to be some process where they're going to validate your pre-approval. So the first thing is we've got to make sure you're qualified. That we should start working on now. Even though we're 6 months away from that projected release date, you might have 6 months worth of work to do. You might have some credit issues you need to deal with. You might have some things about your income that I need to help you work on. You do not want to miss this opportunity. You do not want to miss out on this time frame. And so that is critical for us to be working on. Now, once they open up the timeline and they open up the portal, then you submit into the portal, and then they're going to close it. There's going to be an ending date that says, okay, no more registrations. And then they do a random lottery system. And the lottery is going to be based on where you live. And so remember, sorry guys, it looks like I'm having some internet issues. Hopefully I'm back now. Anyway, it's going to be based on where you live. You're going to get your